So thank you all for being here on time and ready. I hope you have your questions together. I'm Leslie Bray. I am a homeschooling mom of three. My background is a traditional conventional learning. I was in the classroom for about 10 years before coming home. And my children have not had to be in conventional education. So I've been homeschooling and then unschooling is what we're doing currently. Community is a big um, part of my life and my passion and things that I talk about and ways I want to build and show up in the world. And so the last two conversations, if you've been a part of those, have been focused on how do you find the community? And then how do you engage once you found that community? And so this conversation this evening is specifically for those who are really thinking, yeah, I need to start my own space, or I have a couple of friends and we've been talking, and I'd like to know more about what that process looks like. And so, as someone who has built from the beginning, cultivated from the beginning an intentional community here in Atlanta, I've learned a lot over the last 11 years, and I would love to just share some of that knowledge so that you don't have to make all the mistakes or have all the hiccups and the bumps that just happen with growing something new. Um, Something that I am finding definitely now since COVID-19, more and more of us are realizing the importance of being connected to other people. And so being able to do that as well as possible is really something that I would love to share with you all. So I'm glad you all are here. One of the things we've talked about is just the importance of being able to identify what your family needs. And so, as someone who is looking to start something, whether you're doing this alone or with a community of other people, maybe there's another family that you've already connected with. Maybe you've met someone maybe over the online or at the library, and you all have talked enough where this is something you're interested in doing. And so, I want to give you some things to be thinking about. One of the things I tell people when you begin something is go on and start imagining what that space is going to look like. So, what do you see when you think about this space? Who do you see when you're thinking about this space? Um, how does this space feel? And what's happening? How are people interacting? How are children interacting? Go on and imagine the space that you're thinking about and write those things down, because those beginning thoughts can sometimes lead you in the direction that you're trying to go. And sometimes they're just the beginning and it gives you the jumping point when you start talking with other people. Because what you may be imagining by yourself, once you pair up with someone else, they may not be imagining those same things. And so having a starting point to at least say, I'm really interested in doing X, Y, and Z. So Alexis, you mentioned being in a co-op. So when you're thinking about a co-op, what does that look like? Are you thinking about classes for children that parents are teaching? Are you thinking about classes that you hire a teacher to do? Are you thinking about, we're looking at core classes? Or are you thinking, no, maybe we're going to look at extracurricular or art and music? Like, write those kinds of things down so you can start identifying what does the space look like. um, Another thing you need to do is know your why. Why are you starting it? As opposed to joining a space, as opposed to searching something out. And the last two conversations we talked about how to find those spaces. So you're here looking to do something more than just join somebody else. So know why. Um, know what the purpose for this group is going to be, and being able to be as specific as you possibly can, knowing that, again, things are dynamic and they change once we get together with people. But having a starting point is a great way to just begin. Something else is, who are the people that you see being involved in this? Are they other families like yours? So, families with only children? Are you looking for other families with multiple ages? Are you looking for variety? Are you looking for more? I need them to be very similar to me and my family with our philosophy. Are you open to other things? Go on and ask yourself those questions and answer those things so you know where you're heading. And that way you know who you're going to start inviting. and where to start looking for these people. For example, if you're looking to be more in a faith-based community setting, so you want to partner with people you may already attend church with, or mosque with, or synagogue with, maybe that's the place you start looking for those people and say, hey, I'm looking to start a group when we're going to get together for classes with our kids. Versus if you're looking to find people who may be different than you, then maybe you're looking in the neighborhood. Maybe you're saying we want to be location based, so I want to be able to see them more regularly, so we're not having to maybe take a trip somewhere. Maybe it's somewhere right here in our neighborhood. So checking out the library. I know with COVID-19, not everyone is being out and about as they used to. So finding those spaces online. Sometimes you might be a part of a network of homeschooling families, and within that network, you might be able to post a question or just an announcement to say, my family, we live here, we're looking to do X, Y, and Z. We're looking for families who might be interested in joining us. And so being able to know what you're doing, know what you're looking for, know the type of people you're looking for will help you start advertising for it and start inviting for it. Something else to start preparing if you're actually thinking, I'm really going to lead this. This is something I don't mind taking on the work to do. I would definitely say start questioning yourself about what are your motivations for being the leader? Do you have the capacity to show up for yourself and then your family and then all the other families that will be coming? What is the personal work that you're already doing so that you're self-aware? Last time we talked about that just in showing up and being involved in community, but definitely if you're looking to hold space, you want to make sure you've done a lot or enough work. It's ongoing work, but enough work where you can identify likes and dislikes, motivations, um, where you draw your line. So where the boundaries are. You want to know that personally so that when they start translating to the community space, the co-op space, you have those boundaries mapped out as well. So some things that I usually tell people how to start out is definitely start out small. So I would suggest 1, 2, maybe 3 other families in addition to yours is probably enough to get started, because you're going to want to be on the same page with the other parents. So you want to have the time to figure out the logistics, whether it's a co-op. So what are the things we're going to do? How are we going to do it? How are we covering things? Like, are we paying out? Are we using quote unquote sweat equity? So are we just going to give of our time and our own resources? Are we looking to have a shared space? Those are the things that are going to start coming up when you start talking to other people. And you want to be small enough so that everybody who joins you feels that they're being heard, that their ideas are being integrated. Um, and that's, of course, unless you have already created something that you're having somebody join. So even knowing, do you want to create this with people, or are you looking to kind of flesh this out and have people join you in something you're already moving down the road on? Definitely throughout the planning process, put in time for self-care, whether it's individually for you um, or collectively as the adults in the space. Self-care in community is not always thought about like we think about it in our families or for ourselves. I know I talk to a lot of moms we're finally in the practice of taking the time to have self-care for ourselves, but then when we get with other people in community, we may not be doing that as a community. And so you want to put those type of things in place. So think about how long are you going to get together? You know, are there breaks? Are there going to be scheduled breaks? Are you going to make it look like a school year, or are you going to do it more seasonally? So, the great thing about homeschoolers is we do get to kind of set our own schedules for the ebbs and the flows of our life. So I would say take those same thoughts and ideas into community with you. So maybe you're thinking, we're going to go 4 weeks and then we're going to take a week off so that we all have that break as individual families, and then we do another 4 weeks. Some communities do 6 weeks on and 2 weeks off. So there are a lot of ways to kind of put that rhythm, that ebb and that flow, so that nobody is getting burnt out from giving, receiving, and those mutual things. So one of the things that you do want to think about is how you structure what you do is actually more important than what you do. Um, and that's sometimes hard to really describe. So I'll try to give an example. So it matters less about what you do once you get together, the activity that you may do. So it may be an art activity, and you may say, the 8-year-olds are going to get together and do this, and the 10-year-olds are going to get together and do that. The actual activity of it is less important than how are you grouping? What is the culture? What is the feeling that you want to cultivate within your space? So is it a welcoming community? Is it a space where everyone feels comfortable? Those are the types of the hows are what you want to be real thoughtful about. How do people move from being new to being participants? How do you move from, you know, being uncertain and awkward, and how do you move from those new beginnings to feeling like you're actually a part of something? And so thinking about the how do you transition people? How do you even transition from being new in a space to feeling like you're actually a part of a space? And so those are things that I would encourage you to think about before you even pull people together. What are those things? What do they look like? How do they feel? How do you recognize them when you see them? That can definitely help you in the pre-planning. So here are some things that you definitely want to put in place, no matter what group you're trying to start. If you're just looking to casually get together with people at the park and get that support, and then maybe do field trips when you can. Or if you're saying, no, we definitely want to do a co-op, we want to do something where it's more structured, whatever those things are, you want to be, one, able to identify them, and then you want to set up some boundaries around the space. So some groups call them guidelines, some groups call them rules, some of them are agreements. Um, there are different titles you can give them, but it's basically, what are we doing? Why are we together? And how are we going to interact together? And typically we are very thoughtful about how our children interact. And so I know when I get together with people with other children, we've been real thoughtful to make sure that they know, well, we're going to stay in this area, we're going to do this activity, everyone needs to take turns, we're going to share. Yeah, so we're just, as parents, as mothers, we're typically good about being able to give some boundaries to our children. You want to do that for adults as well. And so whether it's the time frame, so when we come here, we all want to be present with each other. And so, I'll give an example. One of the guidelines I use in my space is we put our phones away. You know, we want to be present so that we're here with each other, and so that we're being mindful and thoughtful of our children. So whatever, it could be, if you're doing classes, maybe there's a time frame, and so you want to be mindful of that time frame. Maybe there are children that are too young to be involved in what you're doing, and so you want to have a space or maybe rules around how are they going to handle themselves um, when we're in class. What parents are going to be the teachers versus what parents are going to be the supporters? Or does everyone have to take a turn? So maybe for the first 4 weeks, there are two parents that teach the classes. Maybe it's a nature study class and an art class. And then the next session, two other parents say, well, maybe I'll teach a math class and you teach a spelling class. Like whatever it is, figuring out what those tasks are going to be, and then the boundaries around them. Another thing to think about is how you're going to handle challenges. And so that falls in, a lot of times, again, we think about our children. I know for my children, we have our own personal family rules about, if something happens, you let me know. We talk about it, we address it with the other child, and we talk to the parent if we need to. you want to have those procedures in place definitely for children, but for adults. How are the adults going to handle a challenge or difficulty that comes up? An example that I gave last time was, one of the practices we have in my community is we have agreed that we're going to remain curious and we're going to ask questions. We're going to assume that the other person meant our good and we misunderstood. And so if we come from that perspective, a lot of the times, the few things that have come up this year have immediately been able to be addressed. And so you might have a guideline around the time frame for dealing with difficulties. We try not to let things fester. And so there's a time frame for dealing with things. So think about that. Also, your procedures. So if you're starting with a group of families already, there's really no joining process for them. Once they buy in and they commit and you all are doing it together, then you want to think about what are the procedures if other families want to join. Are you open to other people, or are you just going to stick with the people you're with? And should you be looking to open it up in the future, you definitely want to start thinking about what are the things we want to do? How do we want to advertise? How do we want to get out the information? How do we want to explain what we do? So that other families, when they join, they know what they're joining, they know what they're getting into. And then you definitely want to have whatever the regular activity is going to be, something that's going to happen on a regular basis. This is how we grow together. This is how we build our relationships. And so, regardless of the type of community you're looking to begin, you want to have something that you're meeting on a regular basis. And so, I encourage people do something weekly. Sometimes bigger groups, because just of the size of them, they're able to hold more activities. But for a small group, meeting once a week is a good rhythm to begin. Maybe even once every 2 weeks if you're living further away from each other. But you want to have a regular rhythm where you get into it, your children are involved in it, and then the other families involved get used to whatever that habit is. It also allows you to tweak what your schedule is. So I'll give you an example. When I first started the community where I lead, we tried out many different days. So there was one year we met on Tuesdays, and we did that primarily because at the time all of us had little children, and we met after a story time at the library, which took place on a Tuesday. And so that was our day. But as we got together and we talked some more, people said, well, Friday would work better. Like we changed it. So we moved it to a Friday. And then we did that for a couple of years, and so we changed to another day. So we've gone through different days over the years until we kind of just settled on Thursday's our day. And now that the core of us, that's been what works for us, we're in the habit of it. That's now what we tell people joining. Thursday is our day. So we've gone through the figuring out what works with the smaller group of us. And now that we're a larger group, we kind of can tell people this is what we do, this is where we meet, this is our time frame. But you all beginning, you don't have to necessarily box yourself into knowing this is what it's going to be forever. It can be, let's try this. Let's see how Monday afternoon works for us, or let's try a Wednesday after something that's maybe an activity that you decide that you want to get your kids together to do collectively. Another something to consider is maybe you're not sure, you don't want to group around a particular thing yet. Maybe you just know you need community. Maybe you're looking to build up those relationships and those friendships before you decide, hey, we're going to do classes. And so I would suggest if you're in that position, finding something to do that is outside of any one particular family hosting. The example that I've given before is just a story time at the library, or maybe there's a museum talk. Now with COVID-19, I'm not sure what that might look like, but something outside of yourself, a concert, something that maybe you watch a movie and then you do a Zoom chat to talk about it. So something that gives you something to do something and participate around, but something that you don't have to do the heavy lifting of figuring out, how am I going to organize this? how do we pull this off? You can let a museum pull that off for you, or maybe there's a zoo that's open and you can socially distance going there, viewing some activities, and then doing something socially distanced at a park. So those are things that you might want to think about before you say, yeah, I think I want to do this, but I'm not ready to do this. Give yourself time to get to know the people who you're interested in connecting with. And that way it's a low threshold. It's not, again, you're not boxing yourself in to say, this is what it's got to be. Okay, so another thing, you do want to prepare yourself and your family for the ebbs and flows of relationships and building community. Because there comes a time when everyone's excited, everyone wants to be a part, everyone's all in. And I have found that it's usually seasonally. So here in the US, when things get cold, everyone kind of wants to be at home and to themselves, and we'll see like a drop in participation. And so what we've kind of done is we've just given ourselves that natural break during that time. And so we might gather together right before the Thanksgiving holiday. And then for the next 2 months, we are kind of off. Where it gives every family their own time. If they celebrate something, if they want to travel, if they just want to be with their family, they don't have to be outside of themselves for that time. And that's just the ebb and flow that I've noticed in my community. And so we've made it a part of how we gather. So that's something to think about too. You, as an individual family, your individual family may have a travel season or a vacation time or something that you just do regularly every year. And so that's something you want to go on and plan around that too, and then encourage the other families that you talk with to put in the pot on what types of ebbs and flows are showing up for your family, so that we're not planning during somebody's holiday or somebody's vacation. Or maybe, I have upcoming surgery, I may need these 6 weeks off. So these are things that you definitely can talk about with people you're trying to be with, so that you all are thoughtful of each other's schedules. And that way nobody's feeling the weight of, I've got to hold this together while nobody's here, or, that kind of thing. The other thing that you want to be thoughtful about, whatever space you create, is you want it to be a space that promotes health as much as possible. So a lot of times I've heard from people that either come to me for assistance or who are interested in joining my group, and they'll talk about a previous space and how things just didn't really go well. And I do a lot of listening, because them sharing their experience elsewhere helps me even to adjust and pivot in the space I am currently. And so you want to be as thoughtful as you possibly can. Of course, you can't think of everything. There's going to be a situation that comes up. People are dynamic. People are well-meaning, and we still have bumps and challenges and hiccups. And so being as thoughtful as you can on the front end makes, when those things come up and arise, you'll have the tools, you have the relationship to want to be curious, to want to work things out instead of just leaving. One of the things that I have found in how to make the transition from new to member is having definite practices in place that everyone knows this is what you do. And after you do these things, you're a member. So creating culture, that is something that if you're not thoughtful about, you can just fall in line with what you're used to. And a lot of us have been in places where we can say, yeah, I didn't like how that went, or, ooh, we could have done this, or they should have done that. And so I would even say, think about the feedback or the experiences you've had in other spaces, and things that went really well that you would like to make sure happens in your space, as well as things that didn't go as well as you may have wanted, that you would say, yeah, I didn't like how that went there. How might I be able to do that better? And then go after that information. Sometimes it's in talking to a spouse, a partner. Sometimes it's in talking to other parents. I know I have elders and advisors that I talk to that have just been doing this longer than I have. And so you want to make sure you also set yourself up to connect with other people doing it too. I belong to I guess it would be like a leaders forum type situation. It's informal, but we're a group of leaders of other spaces where we can share things that are going well, challenges. We get some real time feedback. The woman who leads the space, she has been doing this for years, so she's like a grandmother to us in that sense. But it's always helpful to have a mentor, have someone who can help you, who can give you feedback, someone who's not in your space, but someone who understands how your community goes. And that way, they can offer you insight, sometimes that you may not be able to see being right there involved in it. Something I said last time that is very appropriate to repeat again here is that no matter what space you are looking to create or hold, we all want to know people. We all are attracted to authentic people. We're all attracted to people who don't mind showing up and being real. And so that is definitely what I encourage you to do. Do the work so that you're comfortable with you. Know that you're growing, you're learning. There are things not able to do today that in the next few weeks you will be. And that's the same with everyone else. And so one of the practices I have in the space that I lead is we talk about brave space. We talk about being able to show up wherever we are and giving each other the grace to be that person. And then if we show up, let's say in 2 weeks, and we've grown a little bit more, welcoming that person. And so never boxing each other into a, a, a screenshot or a snapshot of where we may be in that moment. It can be a lot to juggle a lot of things. So don't take being a leader lightly. It's a lot to hold space for other people and to help them figure the things out that they need to while you're figuring your own things out. And then while your children may be tugging on you and need your attention, those are dynamics that I don't think a lot of leaders think about all the time in those ways. Typically, we think about what is the stuff, what are the activities, what are the things, as opposed to who are we, how do we show up, how do we connect. And so those are the ways in which I just want to encourage you to continue to do your own personal work so that you can hold space for and with other people, because it's a wonderful thing once you get with your people and you find the folk and you start doing the work. It's a beautiful thing, and I wouldn't trade any of my experiences for what I have now. I have learned, I have grown, and being fully who I am with other people who are fully who they are is just, it's inspiring, if nothing else. The one caution, I gave a caution last time, so the one caution to keep in your mind is just because someone is drawn to your space doesn't mean that they're a good fit for your space. And so as a leader, it's your job to be able to identify who are your people. What are going to be the things that let you know these are the people that need to be here? And then how do you tell people when it's not their space? Those are definitely the harder, weightier, more difficult conversations, but those are the things you want to go on and think about. And that way you have something already in mind, as opposed to waiting for it to happen, because it will happen, and being thrown off, not being sure, and ending up doing unintentional harm that you, just because you weren't prepared for it. So I would say definitely prepare for those things, as you think about that. I just want to end by encouraging you to keep showing up, keep doing your work, whether you eventually decide to start community or join a community. Again, know that The more you know about yourself, the more self-aware you are, the more your children are able to be who they are, the better it is when you get with people, because like does attract like. So you will find your people. I encourage each of you to be in touch with me if you would like to. I can be found at Leslie W. Bray on Instagram and Facebook. You can also reach me at Gmail with lesliewbray@gmail.com. And I have some other things in the works, some more workshops, some chats, and I'll definitely keep you in the loop on those in case you want to join any of those. But until next time, I hope that you continue to be well and continue to be good to yourselves and your family. Have a good evening, everyone. Bye.